Hello, 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 Poppy.
What's happening, Sunshine? You ready to knock out another beautiful, awesome podcast?
I love it. I love it. One of the things I love about the relationship cycle is that we have really talked about some fun, exciting, a little cutting edge, topics. But today, uh, this tickled me. Today we're talking about zodiac signs and your relationship because there are a lot of people who will not get with somebody if they feel like they are incompatible signs. And, I was one of those one time.
You know what's funny? I was completely ignorant to the whole concept of zodiacs and how they play a role in your personal relationships and your dating life,
Mhm,
and your
mhm,
marriages. I never really put any stock to it until I started dating. And, once I started dating, I was like, wow, there's really people out here who will not touch certain zodiacs just because of either bad experiences or just because they just feel that this zodiac does not vibe with me.
mhm.
And there's some people who really, really put a lot of stock into this and they are all about it. Where do you stand on this?
Um, I used to, I still do think, that there are some patterns of behavior, based on when you're born. Now, I just do because I'm like, we're part of the universe, in that sense of things. However, I do not allow anything to control my thinking and my mindset because you are who you decide you're going to be. So if I grew up, everybody talking about, you're under this sign, if you're under this, moon, this whatever, yeah, I do see some similarities in what those things say. But if I never knew about that, like what if I had grown up thinking I was a Gemini when the whole time I was really an Aries? Um, so I've programmed myself to believe a lot of those things, like um, Aries, we bad temper, we're leaders, we always think we're right. Um, I don't know why anybody would think that about me. But truthfully though, there are some things that are very strong about my personality that do very much check off Aries boxes. But then there's also a part of me that's very soft, very sensitive, very loving. I can submit to good leadership. So, you can't hold that against me trying to get in a relationship with me. There's some people who would not touch being in a relationship with me with the 10-foot pole. But I do find that like when I look at the signs of the people that I've dated, um, there are certain signs I just don't get with them, and I will not get back with them for any reason because the signs are very similar. So, for instance, and outside,
Let's hear it. I want to hear some signs. Let's
you
hear. I don't
don't
need
want
any
to be,
names, but I want to hear it. The people want to know.
the people want to know. I can't be with a Capricorn. They are always concerned about money more than anything else in my experience. Now, everybody don't come for me. I said in my say that I don't have friends that are I'm great friends, in fact, with male, female, Capricorns, they whatever. But when it came to a loving relationship, I just I couldn't go the distance with not one of them. Not one of them. They just I don't know, they can compartmentalize relationship so much like if they got things to do, they don't care what you're doing. Like you're in a box until they take you out of the box. And then they're okay, when they want you out the box. I'm like, you're not gonna put me in a box and think I'm gonna be sitting over here waiting for you to do whatever the hell you're doing. And I'm just waiting on you like, you know, my life is just on hold until you decide we're gonna pick back up. So I didn't like that. And so after about I say I dated at least 3 Capricorns, at least, maybe more. They just didn't divulge it, but I could feel it. And I was just like, mm-mm. And so I honestly, if I saw when I was out on dating apps, I'm not out there anymore, but I would be like Capricorn. swipe left. Capricorn, swipe left. I really would swipe left on a Capricorn. Like,
Really? So let's say you're talking to a guy, right? And he's like, "Oh, I was born. What is their birthday range? Is it like end of November through end of December, something like that?"
end of December, mid January.
Okay, gotcha. So if he tells you, "Hey, my birthday is, I don't know, December 20th or whatever,"
Yeah, my
then you're
second.
like, "Okay, this is this." Then you're like, "This ain't for me no more." Is that how that works?
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
You're like pretty short and sweet and pretty
yeah,
pretty simple.
yeah, I was like, oh, okay. But again, I do believe this. I think that if if I've if I've made a decision in my mind about something, then the decision is already made. Like, right? So, for instance, like if I decide I don't like apples, I don't care how many times you cook it, make it, how many different types, my mind is made up. Now, did I give people a chance that, I was like, "Oh, maybe not," but I did with the Capricorns, and it just not. But now that could have been me. Like, I had already convinced myself that Capricorns and I don't get along. I'm an Aries too, so two goats up in there. Both trying to be the leader and hard headed and just and I wasn't as mature either at that point in time. A year or two ago when I was online dating. So now, I still would not try to hold it against people. Like, I just will not date XYZ. But after the experience lived, I try to be more open minded, but I think that's the one that I just can't seem to have a breakthrough there.
All right, so here's the deal. I asked a lot of people in my circle about this because it's fascinating to me how some people really use this as a real guide for how they go about their dating experience.
Mm,
And I will tell you from my little personal survey that the majority of people, um, men and women, right? So men, they made a reference that, and particularly Aries seemed to come up. Men and women were very popular answers as far as signs that they would no longer want to date. And one of the guys that actually mentioned this, he was like, "I will never," and he's an Aries himself, by the way, but he said, "I will never date another Aries woman because, like you mentioned, in
mm,
this scenario, they're both very similarly wired."
mhm,
So it's hard to find that common ground because they're
mhm,
both strong minded. They're both very intense and passionate. So when you combine that, and then obviously, with the emotion of, love and everything that comes with that, that's a lot of emotion, a lot of passion.
yeah.
And they tend to bump heads a lot when it comes to decision making or when trying to decide things. And it was interesting that from the female perspective, a lot of females said that they don't rock with Aries like that. And from the male perspective, I also heard that Aries women are tough to deal with and that they would never deal with them. So what's the deal with Aries? Are y'all just
People try,
difficult to
but
understand? Or y'all just set in your ways? Or what's the deal?
no, I do think we're very strong-minded, though. Like, once we get our mindset on something, it is difficult to now, I do try to remain open-minded, but I'm not just my Aries, and that's the other thing. I really want to bring to light Kasha. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Kasha Knight's point. She said astrology is actually a sacred system utilized in cultures outside of the U.S. For example, the Indian culture used it for centuries in decision and matchmaking, as well as the Chinese culture. It can still be an important tool to navigate through life and relationships. The problem is emotionally immature people who lack accountability oftentimes use zodiac signs as a crutch or an excuse for bad behavior or decisions. He was a lion Libra. She uses in quotes, "No, sis, you ignore all the signs of dishonesty and now blaming it on his signs." Also, people never really do in depth chart readings and are surface level. Our astrological charts are meant to aid us and identifying our weakness to avoid or correct behaviors, not uplift them with pride. So I like what she said about this because I typically use the charts for my own self development. Like, I do know things about me, and that's probably one of the reasons why I can't get with it's not the Capricorns themselves, but me. Like, I want affection. I want, you know, dedicated time to me. I want to
Yeah.
be part of your life. And I don't like feeling minimized. And so for me, that was my thing, but I typically had those feelings around people who were Capricorns who were able to, like I said, they can um, block out things and focus solely on one thing at a time. And I didn't. I always felt like that was I don't know, it was a limitation to me.
I
But
would go ahead, finish your thought.
and for Aries, for me personally, yeah, I do probably go hard in the paint. And for some people, that's very intense. I used to have students who would tell me I was very intimidating to them, but I didn't like, I was just being me, very passionate. We're very passionate, but it can come off as like hard, I guess. And like we could drive through a Mack truck, it might feel like you're getting hit with a Mack truck when you encounter our energy because until I was dealing and working in energy, I was just wide open. I didn't filter myself a lot of times and this mouth. And so for some people, that's a lot. They can't really have all that energy coming at them at one time. We love to start projects, but we're not always the greatest at finishing them. Well, I learned that about myself over time. So now I'm trying to work in areas where my completion time isn't months and months and months and years and years and years to do something because I know I'm a starter. Like, I like to start things and pass it off for other people to continue working with it. But that's how you can use um, what you know about your sign to enhance yourself and your life, even in dating. Like, I'm currently dating a Libra. And those are just the sun signs. Like I have a Virgo moon, so sometimes you might get me real hard and like crazy acting and full steam ahead. And the next thing you know, I'm like all in my introverted self. Don't really want to talk. I'm feeling very perfectionistic, which is a Virgo trait. So the guy I'm dating is a Libra now, and he's my astrological opposite. Well, we really anchor each other in a good way because he always says, I'm ready to jump off the cliff at a moment's notice. And I am because that's like an Aries thing. Let's get it done. Let's do it. We haven't even thought the whole plan out. Let's just see. We can turn mid stride, which is funny. My ex-husband's a Taurus, and he's a very like we got to think about this thing for like months before we take action. I think that's probably one of the biggest things about our marriage that drove me crazy because I was like, let's see, and we can always revamp the plan. He was like, no, I need to let's study on it for a little bit, and it would take forever, and I'd be so frustrated. But
Well, they do say that Aries tend to be impatient based on the research that I did. And to me, the way I look at it now in present day, because like I mentioned before, this stuff was an afterthought to me. I didn't really put any stock to it. But now in present day, I look at Zodiac information as a movie trailer. To
mhm.
me, that's what I look at it as. To me, it's a movie trailer it's a preview of this movie that
Mhm,
I'm considering, right? And then, there may be some negative traits, there may be some positive traits, obviously, like most signs on most people. But if the preview still entices me, then all right, I want to see what this movie's about. So that would be kind of my comparison to this because obviously, doing the research, it is there are some general characteristics that are tied to certain zodiac signs, but that doesn't mean that you can't be compatible even if you do have different ways of approaching life. However, the zodiac signs that are on opposite ends that actually make it work, the
mhm,
way to make it work is by being self-aware of who you are. So if you know that you are impatient, or if you know that you're, an adrenaline junkie or whatever, then as long as you're being mindful of that, it'll help you navigate when you're dealing with people who maybe aren't like you, or if you're considering a partner who does not possess those qualities, right? So being self-aware of your positives and negatives, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody's got positive and negative traits. There's just no way around it.
That's right. And I like that word self-aware, Poppy, because it doesn't even that goes beyond zodiac signs. Maybe you come from different cultures and you're opposites. Maybe you've never encountered somebody who um doesn't, you know, like meat, or, whatever the case may be. Um that self-awareness piece is a good way. Like, I consciously tell myself now to stay curious, because curiosity leads to an open mind. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to do everything, but I do like to hear people's perspectives. Like, why don't you like to jump off the cliff at the first sign of a good idea? Why don't you want to um, go back into a traditional church setting? Or, being curious, as opposed to this is how I am and this is how it's going to be. Because having room for the other person to have room to be who they are is very important, and having that appreciation for that, as opposed to, like when you first fall in love, everything's all hunky dory and everybody can't do no wrong. They can't even, what doesn't even stink. But as soon as we start to get more familiar with people, we lose that sense of wonder and that sense of appreciation. So again, the zodiac is a guide for the people who want to use it. And there's some people who don't believe in it. They feel like it's, anti whatever their religious belief is. But I do think that we're part of the stars. We're part of the dust of creation, So um, as long as you're not letting it dictate when you go outside, and, my horoscope said, and which horoscopes are a little bit different than just studying the signs of the zodiac, as far as your chart, and what those things, when you get into the deeper stuff, it's a little more at least pseudoscience than it is just about how you ought to behave today, or who you ought to stay away from. Like, if I ever see people who write horoscopes or do things like that with the sign, I'm like, nah, I don't get with that, because nothing is gonna hinder me from doing what I need to do except for me. So, I don't give it that kind of power.
No,
But
unless go
yeah,
ahead, finish.
can it help you be able to determine a relationship that is gonna work for you, by being able to understand how people's traits might be, generally speaking, guided by a zodiac sign. Yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
No, and I will add to this, right? Referencing to, because I have heard that from people where they're like, "Oh, I don't see how stars has anything to do with who we are." Well, one argument that I would present is the sun is considered a star,
Mhm,
and the sun actually impacts our emotional and physical
mhm,
being when we go outside. And obviously, this is a scientific fact.
yeah,
The more sun you get, the more vitamin D you get, the more vitamin D you get, it can help your mood.
right.
So that is a scientific factual thing. That's not just, something
Mhm,
that's just pulled
mhm,
out of thin air.
mhm,
So there is something to it. And I will say, as I've done more digging on this topic, and obviously I research Sagittarius and I see some of the descriptions,
mhm,
and I will say there is a lot of characteristics that I can identify with. And now that I've become more mindful about this stuff, I will say that with other Sagittarius, men or women,
mhm,
even on just a friendship level, we vibe and think very much alike. So it's almost scary, like how accurate some of the
mhm.
stuff can be. That whether it's male or female, we really do move in life in a very similar way.
Yeah.
So it is interesting and at the same time scary how some of this stuff like really can manifest. But I do think that based on the research with the dating, just because someone is opposite, zodiac sign, that doesn't mean that it can't work.
Mhm.
But you may have to learn to cope with some of the negative traits, or learn how to find common ground.
Mm.
And obviously, that's with any relationship where you got to learn to find common ground. Because if you're both trying, if you're both hung up on trying to one up or to try to be right over each other, that's going to present a lot of issues in any kind of relationship.
Hence why I have not really ever dated an Aries as well.
Oh yeah, so you
I don't
kind of
think
admit that Aries
myself.
are difficult to handle,
I don't
huh?
think myself poppy, not at all. But
So
again,
so have you dated an Aries guy before?
um, well, I would say I got to know one. It was just sort of like that pre-dating kind of uh, arena. So, um,
So you didn't get the full effect. You didn't get the full Aries experience then.
I didn't like full experience because I'm enough. Uh, hey, sometimes I gotta go, girl. What are you doing? What are you doing too much? You doing too much, Nelsa. You're doing too much. So, yes, I'm like, no, no, no. But it was never like I don't think it was because I really liked the traits of an Aries man because they're very confident, very assertive, go-getters. I like that energy in a man, but I think because I am also assertive and confident, and I don't see myself. I used to, but I don't anymore. I feel like I'm a very feminine woman, um, and it's a whole different show topic, but I feel like because though I do know my own mind, and if I don't feel comfortable or feel good about a decision, you're not gonna move me, and I'm not gonna just blindly follow a stupid decision, or you know what I'm saying? So, I'm some men I think want more softness in that area than what I'm willing to give, and so I'm like, no, 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 no. I have a brain, and I'm here to use it. Um, so in my experience, it was just like it was a lot of hard head energy. Like, you just can't convince us sometimes that, my way is not the best way. So we can't both be, trying to lead in a relationship. Now, again, maybe I was looking at it through the lens of the zodiac when it really was like our friend Kasha said, this is a man who thinks he's right when he's not. And I can't submit to bad leadership. I can submit to somebody that I see you know how to think, you do what you say you're gonna do, you got integrity, that's not a difficult call for me.
Walk it like they gotta walk it like they talk it,
Walk you
basically.
like walk it like you talk it. That's right. That's
Oh, I
right.
love that song. That's an amazing song. But to to get back on track, as far as with the zodiac, what would you say were some signs that were compatible for you, or that you feel like, man,
Mhm.
whenever I meet, I don't know, dot 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 Gemini or whatever, you're like, I know that there's going to be some spark there, or we're going to be able to vibe pretty well. Do you have some of those?
Honestly, I do like Geminis, but they can throw too many emotions at you, so I got out of that game. Sagittarius, actually, my dad was a Sagittarius,
He
and
must have been a cool guy.
listen, that's one of the first things people say out of their mouth. You guys had the exact same birthday, as a matter of fact, December 12th.
Oh
So,
yeah, he's definitely awesome, no doubt about it.
and I think Sagittarians have this like independent energy that I also have. So, like when I need to do stuff on my own or go my way, there was that freedom. Like my dad was a very there were only a couple, real rules and things that he gave me growing up. And so that energy I was always very attracted to. And actually if you look at the charts, Aries and Sagittarians are both fire signs, but very compatible. Some of my best girlfriends were Sagittarians. Libra is a good sign for me because there's a lot of balance with Librans, and they have a real intellectual capacity that I love. Now, I do have to say, now Libras who stay in the books, who never come out and do, stuff, like they stay in their head too much. I
Right.
kind of watch for that. But um Aquarians I really had good success with. And again, there's I get signs that have this sense of free spiritedness, like they don't try to control me. They're not trying to, dominate me or whatever. I tried Cancer. They're very romantic men, but they just didn't have enough uh, manliness for me. Like I like a strong man. I want you to be a man's man, and don't try to punk me or nothing or make me feel. So don't condescend to me, but I like strong men. Like, oh, you said I got this baby. What? Okay.
Bring out all that masculine energy to blend with that feminine energy. But I want to put this out there because I'm curious to see if there's any merit to this, right?
Mm,
So obviously, we've established that some people are all for it. Some people are not for it at all. I'm somewhere in the middle where I think there is some merit to it.
mhm.
I think it does play a role, but it is not the only role, in my
Right.
opinion. To me, it's a piece of the puzzle,
That's right.
but I would challenge people, and I'm also going to try this myself. Uh, think of the bad relationships that you've had, or people that you just walked away from for whatever reason, right? Involved relationships and dating, and then see what their signs were, and compare it to your sign in present day,
Mhm.
and then see how those characteristics stack up. Because it's funny, because now that I use this as a preview, sometimes as I'm out spending time with a woman, I'm like, there's the Aquarius side of you coming out, or there's the Capricorn side. That some traits are just part of who they are. Like, for example, I read one of mine the other day, and it said that we're one of the easiest going people, and we get along with a lot of people.
Mhm.
And I get that a lot because I've had people in my circle say, you have a lot of different types of friends of different backgrounds, which, to me, I enjoy that. I enjoy learning about new people, new cultures, new experiences. So I like to kind of venture out, whether it be in friendships or even in dating, where, dating women of different cultures or different nationalities, et cetera. To me, that's exciting, and it's appealing and enticing to me.
Right, right. Well, and I'll say this, as we get ready to wrap up. Your sun sign is your birthday sign, okay? So I do know just enough to be dangerous. Um, I'm not an expert. Don't call me for a reading. I don't do it, but I do, know some stuff. Don't ask me how. But your sun sign is like your actual birthday. Like I was born on this day. Your moon sign, which is sort of what they call your shadow self, and we've talked some about your shadow self, which is the part of you that exists, sort of like maybe like I'm very confident and go getter as an Aries, but then my shadow self, my moon sign, which is the shadow side of the sun, if that makes sense, right? Um, is Virgo. So I do have those traits that I don't necessarily lead with my Virgo side, right? It's underneath my Aries. And then there is one called your ascendant, and that takes like knowing your birth time, so what time of day you were born, um, and that kind of factors into these numbers. But my ascendant, which is funny, is Taurus. So I'm
What?
like an Aries. I got horns everywhere. Um, Aries, sun sign. I'm a Taurus, ascendant, like my rising. What's next? Like what came right after me? So it's the sign typically what's right after um your sun sign. But there's a way to calculate. If you go on, there's all this stuff's online now. You don't have to do the old school calculations. You can just type in what's my sign, and it'll ask for like different information. And
And I
so
think you're also,
that
we
makes a
have
difference.
to kind of put a bow on this conversation, right? Now, yeah, there's a lot of material out there about people's traits and characteristics, and how kind of they conduct themselves based on their sign and stuff. But I do want to add this, that sometimes there are people, depending on their birth date, that can share different characteristics from multiple signs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So just because one person is a Capricorn, right, that doesn't mean that they may not have characteristics of a Sagittarius, right? Because they come right after Sagittarius as far
Cusper,
as in the
I call
calendar stuff. What's
Yeah.
up?
They're called cuspers. That's what I call because you're on the cusp of both those signs. Like my oldest daughter was September 22nd, and so she's right on the cusp of Virgo and Libra. Right now she's in her Virgo season. So, as she continues to mature and grow, she may start to show more signs of a Libra, which are very different than Virgo if you study them, but not all different, but there's some strong traits, like you said, that can help you in your self development. So, and again, that's the whole point is how do I improve me so that I can be a good partner to somebody else, right?
No, I agree, and that's look, like the dating expert mentioned, right? That just because somebody is opposite of you doesn't mean that it can't work between you
Mhm,
two, but it may require more work, more self-awareness, and obviously finding, common ground when it comes to decision making or planning or, how you go about life. So it is
mhm,
possible. So it's not just because, hey, I'm not compatible with one Aries that it can't work. It just may require a little bit of work, but that is where being self-aware of your strengths and weaknesses will definitely help you navigate those waters a lot better. And also, let's be
mhm,
mindful that sometimes if you have employees or if you have family members, kids, being
mhm.
aware of some of those characteristics can also help you on how to relate,
Yeah,
how to communicate with people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on a romantic level.
right. Other relationships we have, exactly. And listen, Aries, if you got you a good Aries, stick it out, work it out. If you got you a good Capricorn, make it happen, okay? My views do not necessarily represent the views of the relationship cycle with Jorge and Nelsa.
Aries lives matter, Nelsa. Come on now. They're gonna be coming after you online now. I'm gonna tell all the Aries. Here's her social media. Here's her IG. Let her know how y'all feel about being an Aries.
Awesome. Listen, until next time, everybody.
And before we wrap it up, guys, like us, follow us, refer us, check out our YouTube channel. It's free. But obviously, the more support and love we get, the more energy we want to pour into this, the more amazing topics that we want to chop up and discuss. And as always, thank you for your love and support. Buenas noches, good people.